Project Search.
Hi, it's Danny again. Today, I'll be talking to you about self-esteem and how very important it is for your health and your success. Watch the presentation. You will be quizzed on this material later, but you know that already. Project Search UTMC Remote Learning presents Lessons from Health Matters, the Health Education Curriculum. Today's lesson, the importance of self-esteem to your health and success. Let's start with the definition. What is self-esteem? Self-esteem is the way we feel about ourselves. It is the degree to which we like and respect ourselves despite our weaknesses or the mistakes we make. Our self-esteem influences how we get along in the world. When we have high self-esteem, we feel worthy of respect, and we are more likely to make healthy choices and advocate for ourselves. Self-esteem obviously is very important, and it affects many different areas of our lives. See in the picture, a person who appears to have high self-esteem. They can look in the mirror and be happy with what they see. So where does self-esteem come from? Self-esteem is influenced by our parents. So during our childhood, a lot of our self-image or what we feel about ourselves is fostered in us by our parents. Also, siblings. Our siblings, as in our brothers and sisters, we happen to have those when we're growing up. They have a big impact on it. In addition to siblings, there are other relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, and all these people have an effect on our self-image, our self-esteem. Other people who influence our self-esteem are our peers. In other words, the people who we perhaps went to school with, people you will work with, and of course, your other interns in Project Search. These are all your peers, and they also have an impact on your self-esteem. Another thing that affects self-esteem is the media we consume. So when I say media, I mean the things we look at and watch and read on the internet, programs we watch on television and movies, things we may read in a newspaper or listen to on the radio or read in magazines. That's all media, and it can have an impact on our self-esteem too. So if we look at that last item, the media, think about the types of images we see out there. Sometimes the media sets unrealistic expectations for people in terms of what you're supposed to look like and all the things you're supposed to have, as in like possessions and money and things like that. So the media can sometimes influence our self-esteem by setting expectations that may or may not be realistic for everyone. How does self-esteem affect our health? When we have high self-esteem, we are more likely to exercise, eat healthy foods, have good relationships with others, and try new things. In other words, having high self-esteem or being confident and believing in ourselves, all the things that self-esteem means, we are actually more likely to do the things that will keep us healthy, like the exercise and making healthy food choices. And also, it will help us in our relationships. We'll get along better with others because we will believe that we're worthy of that friendship with other people and those interactions, those positive interactions. It'll help us to be nicer and friendlier to other people, and people will, in return, want to be nicer and more friendly to us. And then, of course, trying new things, well, you have to have some self-confidence to be willing to go out and try new things. I happen to use a picture of someone in a kayak, a type of boat that you can go on the water. You've probably seen these before. Now, you'll never have to try kayaking if you don't want to, But there are lots of things out there that you could try that would be new to you. And so if you have high self-esteem, you're going to be more likely to go ahead and give those new things a try. And because you'll believe that you have a really good chance of being good at those things. How does low self-esteem affect our health? When we have low self-esteem, we're more likely to skip exercise, eat unhealthy foods, have poor relationships, and withdraw from activities. So, when we have that low self-esteem, we don't really believe in ourselves and we think that we're not worthy, then we're much more likely to make unhealthy choices, like instead of figuring out some exercise to do, just maybe sitting on the couch, maybe watching a little too much television, and not giving our bodies that exercise that our bodies need. And in a similar way, we might not really care enough to think about what we're eating, and we could end up eating a lot of sugary or junky food that isn't really good for our health. And then the poor relationships. When someone doesn't feel very good about themselves, it makes it a lot harder for them to get along with other people, and they're going to not be open and friendly in the way that a person with high self-esteem would be. So they may argue, they may not figure out how to just kind of be nice to people and get along in that way. And then withdrawing from activities. So the person with low self-esteem is much more likely to, instead of going out and trying new things, developing hobbies and making friends and things like that, they're going to sometimes end up sitting by themselves a lot, not really doing a whole lot, and being kind of isolated. And you're probably not going to have much to be able to talk to people about because you're just not doing anything. So here's a question to ask yourself. Do you have high or low self-esteem? So let's do a comparison. So people with high self-esteem take responsibility for their mistakes, whereas people with low self-esteem blame others for their mistakes. I recently talked about how important it is to be confident and how it is not a good thing to be arrogant, and how arrogant people will blame others for their mistakes and confident people will take responsibility for their mistakes. Well, similar situation here with the self-esteem. In fact, I did mention when we talked about arrogance and versus confidence that a lot of times people who have an arrogant attitude actually have low self-esteem. So it's connected in that way. People who have high self-esteem feel happy and capable of success, whereas people with low self-esteem feel insecure and fear failure. Someone with high self-esteem is willing to take on the new challenges, and someone with low self-esteem is going to try to avoid the new things. So think about the list here and where you might fit into it. These are only a few of the impacts self-esteem has on people's lives. So my lists here are certainly not everything, but I think there's some important aspects to this topic. If your self-esteem is low, how can you raise it? So the first thing you should do is try to focus on your strengths. In other words, think about the things that you really are good at, that you know you're good at. And when you start thinking about that, that naturally should start to raise your self-image, your self-esteem. In addition to that, try exercising. Start thinking about the foods you eat and making sure that you're making choices that are actually good for your health, good for your body. And go out and try new things. So, in other words, this is kind of about a change of habits. If you have low self-esteem and you want to change that, then be proactive in your life. Try to get out there and exercise and not maybe watch as much television sitting on the couch. And that'll help you feel better about yourself. In addition, if you're exercising and you have healthy food choices that you make, that's going to make you feel even better and be able to do even more exercise. And then going ahead and trying new things, even if you're concerned that you won't be good at this new thing or that you might fail or make mistakes when you're trying a new thing. Try to do it anyway. And remember that anyone who tries a new activity is going to have to learn and that they'll make mistakes. And so will you, and that that's okay. It's more important that you keep trying your best. And if you do all these things while focusing on your strengths that you already know you have, that should help you to raise your self-esteem. We will talk about this, and I hope you'll have questions for me, and I hope that you'll be willing to share your ideas. Just the act of opening up, sharing your thoughts with the group can actually help raise your self-esteem. Goodbye.